Death is the most certain part of life, yet it often arrives with signs and signals that families either overlook or dismiss as normal aging. Doctors, nurses, and caregivers who work closely with the elderly or terminally ill have observed patterns that tend to appear in the final weeks or days before life comes to an end. While every person's journey is unique, there are certain changes in the body, mind, and behavior that strongly suggest death may be near. This video is not meant to create fear, but rather to bring awareness. Recognizing these early signs allows families to prepare emotionally, provide comfort, and ensure that their loved ones' final moments are dignified and peaceful. Doctors often stress that noticing these signals in time can help families offer better care, reduce unnecessary suffering, and accept reality with compassion. In this script, we will carefully explore 7 of the most important early signs of death approaching soon that families should never ignore, according to medical professionals and end-of-life specialists. Sign 1. Profound and persistent fatigue. One of the earliest and most common signs doctors notice is overwhelming tiredness. The person begins to sleep much longer than usual, sometimes up to 18 to 20 hours a day. Even when awake, they may appear weak, drowsy, or disengaged from conversation. This exhaustion is not the same as normal tiredness after a long day. It is a deep, unshakable fatigue caused by the body slowly shutting down. The heart pumps less efficiently, the lungs exchange less oxygen, and energy production decreases drastically. Doctors explain that when death is approaching, the body naturally conserves its remaining energy for the most vital functions. That means digestion slows down, mobility decreases, and even speaking may become too tiring. Families often notice their loved one spends most of the day in bed, speaking less, and showing little interest in surrounding. What makes this sign so important is that families sometimes mistake it for laziness, depression, or the side effects of medication. But persistent, unexplained fatigue, especially when combined with reduced eating and drinking, is often the body's natural preparation for the end. Sign 2. Reduced appetite and thirst. Doctors emphasize that a dramatic decline in appetite is one of the clearest signals that life is nearing its close. The person may start refusing food, eating just a few bites, or pushing meals away entirely. Drinking water also becomes less frequent. Why does this happen? As the body weakens, digestion becomes more difficult. The intestines slow down, swallowing may feel like a burden, and the body no longer demands fuel the way it once did. In fact, forcing food or water in this stage can sometimes cause discomfort or even complications, such as choking. Medical professionals stress that families should not interpret this as their loved one giving up. Instead, it is a natural biological response. The body requires less energy because its systems are winding down. This sign is emotionally hard for families to accept. Food is often associated with love and care, so watching a loved one refuse nourishment can feel heartbreaking. But doctors remind us that comfort, moistening the lips, or offering small sips when requested is often more helpful than pushing meals. Sign 3. Withdrawal and less communication. Another sign that families should never ignore is emotional withdrawal. People nearing death often become less interested in the outside world. They may stop participating in conversations, avoid visitors, or speak very little. Doctors explain this is not always depression, it is part of the transition. The dying person begins to focus inward, reflecting on memories, or detaching from worldly concerns. Some may appear to be in a dreamlike state, speaking to loved ones who have already passed, or mentioning going on a journey. For families, this can feel like rejection, but it is not. It is a natural part of preparing for the end. The brain begins shutting down, and conserving energy means less social interaction. Medical staff often encourage families to simply sit quietly, hold hands, and offer presence rather than force conversation. Even if the person does not respond, hearing a familiar voice can still bring comfort. Sign 4. Changes in breathing patterns. Doctors who work in palliative care note that breathing often changes noticeably as death approaches. This is known as Cheyne-Stokes breathing, where breaths may become irregular, sometimes shallow, sometimes deep, with long pauses in between. The rhythm of breathing may sound strange. Periods of rapid breaths followed by silence, as if the person stopped breathing for several seconds. This can be frightening for families to witness, but it is a well-documented sign that the body is preparing to shut down. What's happening inside the body? As the brain's control over breathing weakens and the muscles tire, the process becomes uneven. The lungs no longer exchange oxygen efficiently, and the body adjusts by taking irregular breaths. Medical professionals reassure families that while this breathing looks alarming, it usually does not cause pain. Instead, it is a natural and expected part of the dying process. Doctors often recommend keeping the room calm, avoiding panic, and simply being present. Sign 5. Cooling of hands and feet. Another early indicator that death may be near is a noticeable change in body temperature. The hands, feet, and sometimes legs become cold to the touch. The skin may appear pale, bluish, or mottled with purple spots. Doctors explain this happens because the heart is no longer pumping blood as effectively. The body redirects circulation to the vital organs, leaving the extremities with less warmth. Families often notice their loved one asking for more blankets, or they may feel surprised at how cold the skin becomes. This is a natural part of the dying process and does not necessarily mean the person feels discomfort, although keeping them warm with light covers can help provide reassurance. This sign is often a visible reminder that the body is shutting down, which can be difficult emotionally. But recognizing it helps families understand that death may be approaching in days rather than months. Sign 6. Confusion and restlessness. Doctors also warn that mental changes such as confusion, restlessness, or agitation are common when death is near. The person may not recognize familiar faces, mix up words, or seem unaware of their surroundings. This is caused by reduced oxygen to the brain, metabolic changes, and the body's declining systems. In some cases, people may try to get out of bed even when too weak, pick at the sheets, or speak about needing to go home. While this behavior may distress families, doctors emphasize it is usually not intentional or painful. Gentle reassurance, a calm environment, soft music, or simply holding hands can reduce agitation. Medications may also be used if the restlessness causes discomfort. This sign is important to recognize because families sometimes misunderstand it as dementia or sudden mental illness. In reality, it often indicates that the final days are close. Sign 7. Declining vital signs. Finally, one of the clearest medical indicators of approaching death is a steady decline in vital signs. Doctors and nurses may observe a weak or irregular pulse, low blood pressure, slower heart rate, shallow or labored breathing, drop in body temperature. These changes may not be obvious without medical equipment, but attentive families may notice a faint pulse, very weak breathing, or long silences between breaths. Doctors explain these changes occur because the body is no longer able to sustain itself. The organs gradually stop functioning, and the vital signs reflect this decline. Families should understand that this is a natural, unavoidable process. The goal at this stage is not to prolong life artificially, but to provide comfort, dignity, and peace. The deeper meaning of these signs. Each of these 7 signs, fatigue, reduced appetite, withdrawal, changes in breathing, cooling of extremities, confusion, and declining vital signs, represents the body's final preparation for rest. Doctors stress that while these signs may seem frightening, they are usually not painful when managed properly. Families who recognize these changes early can shift their focus from aggressive medical treatment to comfort care, ensuring that their loved one spends their last days with dignity and minimal suffering. The key is not to panic, but to understand. Death is not the enemy. It is a natural stage of life. Accepting these signals allows families to spend meaningful time together, express love, and say the words that matter most before it is too late. How families can respond with compassion. Doctors and palliative care specialists recommend several steps families can take when these signs appear. 1. Provide presence, not pressure. Even if your loved one speaks less, simply being there offers comfort. 2. Respect reduced appetite. Offer small sips or mouth care instead of forcing meals. 3. Maintain calm surroundings. Gentle music, soft lighting, and a quiet environment can ease restlessness. 4. Offer physical touch. Holding hands or gentle massage can soothe without words. 5. Seek medical guidance. Hospice or palliative care teams can guide you in managing symptoms. 6. Speak words of love. Even if the person seems unresponsive, hearing remains one of the last senses to fade. Death is not just an ending, it is a passage. Doctors who work with the dying say that recognizing the early signs of death approaching is one of the greatest gifts a family can have. It allows them to prepare emotionally, provide the right kind of care, and ensure that their loved one does not feel alone in their final moments. The 7 early signs, persistent fatigue, loss of appetite, withdrawal, breathing changes, cold extremities, confusion, and declining vital signs, are not just medical symptoms. They are the body's gentle whispers that the journey is almost complete. When families notice these signs and respond with love instead of fear, death becomes less of a tragedy and more of a peaceful transition. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson. While we cannot stop death, we can choose to meet it with compassion, dignity, and presence.